Is hello. I want to give you some psychological, sociological, whatever you want to call it, anthropological insight on acquiring a foreign language. Motivation. The other day, I said that I started learning Russian kind of out of spite for this anti-Russian wave in Europe it's going to fade because they, not me, but they're not winning. You'll see. That's all propaganda. I'm not a fanatic of whatever comes from Russia. I'm much into American music, movies, whatever. English is part of my language, is my identity. That doesn't mean that I support whatever comes from this so-called Anglosphere, the part of the monde that speaks English, that is under the rule of America. So I mastered my courage because I know Russian is a difficult language because I started for 2 months learning 1990, more or less, after the fall of the Soviet Union. There was a wave of interest for Russia and the Russian language, and I learned the alphabet and some things. After long consideration, I decided to pick up Russian. Somebody said, you need to learn a language because you love it. I know this I'm saying is counterintuitive, but I think that once you know the language very well, it's part of you. 80%, 90%, as opposed to your native language. I always think that you shouldn't call that native language mother tongue. There are languages that we speak kind of better, but if you always think this is a second language, we acquire some excuses not to speak it well. At the beginning, we only hear sounds. We cannot make sense of what we listen. So we are. That's why Greek people call foreigners barbari. Oh, and with the modern Greek pronunciation, hoi barbaroi. That means those who pronounce blah 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 to the ears of people who do not understand that language. So at the beginning we can fall in love with the appearance of a language. For example, I don't like the appearance of modern Greek, I don't like the sound of modern Greek, but it's part of me. I've been listening to modern Greek with interruptions, but for 40 years. So when I hear modern Greek, it's part of me, like English. Less than English, but it's part of me. So I don't think the languages are in itself something artistical. There's nothing artistical in one language as opposed to another language. They're not beautiful languages or bad sounding languages. Maybe they are to our ears, but it depends also on the language we already know. We are familiar with the language we already know, and if we encounter sounds that are very difficult to pronounce, to grasp, sometimes we don't even, because we have some might theory that we have a recognition software of sounds, we don't hear exactly what is being said. That's why my theory is listening to a lot helps you then pronounce better, because you listen so many times, and after 100 listening you really grasp each and every sound, every inflection and everything. So it's easier for you to pronounce. Many times we cannot pronounce because we cannot listen, we cannot hear. So we only hear the sounds at the beginning, and in time, when you speak your own language, you don't hear sounds. You hear but sounds are immediately linked to their meaning. So when you hear dog, the sound of the word evokes you. What is the right word in English? I don't find the image, the concept of a dog. You hear the sound dog in a six, one after the other, and you almost see a dog. When you hear, for example, собака in Russian, it means dog. I hear собака, and not immediately. I know that it means dog. When I hear skylos in Greek, I immediately think dog. When I hear cane in Italian, I immediately think dog. Chien in French, I immediately think. Why? Because I've been exposed to those languages for much longer time than Russian. So the link is immediate. It takes a long time to develop this immediate passage from the sound to the meaning. Okay? Disregarding the fact that sometimes the same sound has a different meaning according to the context. For example, in Italian, anno means year, but also they have. So in time, we perceive just the meaning of the language, and the external thing disappears. It's like your wife. After many years you married, you don't see your wife anymore. It's difficult to explain. Like other people see it, they actually judge her appearance. You see your wife. It's almost transparent to you. So in time, we just speak the language, and I can perceive that I don't really like the sound of Greek when I haven't been exposed to Greek for weeks or months, and I listen, okay, but why do I not like it? I don't know. We don't know because some people like Italian, or we like because it resembles our language, or just because it's the opposite of our language, or because I don't know, we've been listening to song in that language and conjure, that's the word I was looking for. It conjures feelings of our youth, or beautiful, or having a good time in that country. Or you were in love with a girl and you used to listen to those songs that were incidental in that language, or those were the songs. Those songs were in the language of your loved one. There are several reasons. After a while, you completely forget, and you just speak the language. When you speak language, you have another kind of love because it's part of you. It's part of you. We tend to prefer and to like better what is close to us. That's why people, you're Italian, I'm Italian, okay. You have never known that person. You don't know your fellow citizen like you don't know another person from another country, but you have this empathy. So you have empathy for what is close to you, and you have also a curiosity on the opposite side for what is far from you. Different feelings, but you're equally attracted in a different way. Okay, that's why I sometimes don't like. I personally don't like languages that are similar too similar to my own language. I'm not interested because it sounds to me I'm not really into something different, and that's one of the other reasons why people are spoiled when it comes to learning foreign languages. They, in the Western world, we tend to learn something that is similar. So with this idea that a language is difficult up to a certain point, so a French person who learns English, half of the vocabulary is familiar, almost the same for Italians. Not to say when Italian learn French, which is quite easy from a certain point of view. French is easy, Spanish is easier. Generally speaking, some things are more easier in French. Portuguese, in a lesser degree Romanian, and then German, up to Russian, that is quite difficult. I started Turkish, which is difficult in a different way. What do you look for when you learn a foreign language? You want a challenge, or you want a new word open to you? If you want a challenge, go for difficult languages, but the word that is opening to you is always an important thing. Let's say even if you learn a minority language or not so spoken, remember that you will have access to that word. So if you learn Lithuanian, it will not be neutral. A little less for English or languages that are more internationally spoken, but on the other side, you lack the motivation of a new culture. Sometimes people learn English without thinking that it is the language of the native language of millions of people who have certain culture. It's not a neutral language. Some people use it as a neutral language. It is not. That's why I think that I prefer Esperanto as an international language, but that's for another video. I know there is a lot of hate and distrust for Esperanto just because it's not the language of a country. That's what it's meant to be, not the language of a country. Developing another culture should be food for another video. So we learn a language, we have a new word open to us. So even if I don't personally like Russian, I don't know, it's kind of, what language do I like listening to? I like Portuguese, but I don't like there's also the problem which people I'm going to deal with. And I didn't find the kind of openness and love for Italian language on the Portuguese side. I mean, there are more Russians. I like Portuguese from Portugal, and there is 12, 13 million people. Russian is 108, I don't know, almost 300 considering all countries near Russia or foreign Soviet and the republics, they're now independent, where Russian is a second language. For many people it's still the first language. It's a very complicated linguistic situation. So there's also another consideration. You may consider living in that country. I may consider, even if I'm not young, to spend my last 10 years life in Russia, or 15, depending on how long I live. Maybe I will die in 10 days, I don't know. But and you need to know the language, because you cannot live in a country if you don't know the language. Other things, don't be obsessed. Somebody wrote me the truth is that it takes some time to learn a language. To go from A to B by car, it takes some time. You know, this is the speed limit. You cannot go faster than that without having problems. You can go slower than that. So let's think that you should maximize as far as possible your efforts and try to learn the best way. That doesn't mean that means streamlined, not too much. I mean, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing what I should do, and then now and then I watch a video. But don't waste your time just watching video on YouTube. This is haphazard. I always say if your approach is casual, the result is casual. Okay. When you learn a language up to a certain level, the anything goes approach does not work. Oh, I have my approach. No, 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 listen to me. There are good approaches and bad approaches. Some approaches are objectively bad. That doesn't mean you wouldn't learn anything, but you're more than likely to be an eternal beginner. You attain a certain level. You have a kind of not so good but working knowledge of the language, as I see on the web. I have been teaching languages, English, Italian. I help people with Greek, even if not my native language, and I have a huge experience in. I know from one or two kind of lessons. I don't call them lessons. I help them in a way. If they are going to learn or not is the psychological approach. Being serious does not. In Italian, we have this word serious or serious-like, which means serioso. I mean, it's a stilted, stuffy approach to learning. Shouldn't have that. Doing things the right way is important. I always show I'm using this for Russian. I'm not going to learn it like the back of my hand. I mean, very well. So I know what I'm doing. I have the recordings, very important. Spend 2/3 of the time, I would say that, listening to recordings. But, a big but, B-U-T, not B-U-T-T. I have some hours of the day where I should do that. Then if I have time, I usually, in the afternoon, I listen, and when I do other things, 2 hours. It's not like I'm perking my ears very attentively. It depends. And then later, I review the book, I read, and then I listen and read at the same time. So I have you can have different approaches to this method, but you need to have a method anyway. When I'm over, I don't think about Russian anymore. I live my life. I forget everything. Obviously, English is my medium, like Italian. What does it mean? That I do not spend time with recording. I live English. I watch videos. I read books like in Italian. This is the level where you really use your language. That doesn't mean I think, oh, I already know Italian. It's my native language. I don't know English because almost my native. Like I always pay attention to what people say, and when I bump into a word I don't know, I always look it up. I should always have a notebook when I write it down. Anyway, don't take for granted that languages should be kept alive. You should have priorities. My priorities obviously are Italian. That's okay. I don't need to have a priority. I live in Italy and English. I don't live nowadays in an English-speaking world, but I made my own English-speaking word. I have 1 or 2 friends with whom I speak English. My English is the result of what I've been doing in my life, so it's a mix of British English, Italian, in a minor way because I live in Italy, and American English. I make learning a language is part of my or keeping languages alive is part of my life. Sometimes, since in life you speak and you watch things, you listen to things. I just live my life and I keep on speaking English and I keep on speaking Italian, in a lesser degree Greek, because no, it's not the language, it's the medium I'm in. And I learning Russian. I've been learning language for 2.5 months, maybe more or less. Progress very slowly. I'm doing what I want to do, what I need to do every week, and no more. No, the days of the week, how to say good. That's the first lesson. How to say the cold, not the adjective, the noun. The heat, other things. It's a method. I just want. Then I will buy another method, and I don't know. Something appeared. Okay, that's a long-winded video about, because I have such a long experience both as a learner and as a speaker. Okay, that I see person who have an obsessive approach to learning foreign language, to need to sound like, how to sound like, give a shit, you should not sound like what you are. You don't use some funny expressions to sound native when you're not native, you're not on a native level, and using some expressions to sound native when you still make major mistakes and your accent is so bad, it's kind of silly. I don't learn things to impress other people. I don't give a fiddler's fart. I use this expression. I don't give a shit about impressing other people. I don't impress anyone. Oh, you speak English? It's my language. Oh, you speak good Italian? It's my language. When you learn a language on a native speaker, almost like a native speaker, people will always understand that you haven't lived your whole life in that country, even if it's your native language. If you spent 20 years in the United States, from 20 to 40, your Italian is not the same anymore. Tell you what, it's difficult to keep airtight, watertight departments between language completely divided, unless you speak completely different languages like Chinese and Italian. It's difficult to mix Italian with Chinese, but the accent can, spill over your own language. So it's always a process. A language is a process. Even your native language, a language you think you know, you're going to forget. Can you forget your native language? This Metatron made an interesting video about that. It means what you mean by forget. You get a little bit rusty. Obviously, you never forget your native language. You cannot say, excuse me, I want to go to the station. Can you give me directions? You can say that in your own language, even after 50 years. But, people can tell that you speak a language fluently, but you have a tinge of an accent. You will always have a tinge of an accent. I have it right now in English, because in Italian I don't think I have, but sometimes when I've been speaking English for 2 hours, I don't know, with somebody, it's rare. I've been speaking English for 30 minutes or sometimes on the phone with somebody who speaks English, and then I watch a movie in English and I read in English, and then I start speaking Italian. I can have the occasional caro, the occasional, it happens. It happens also in English. I can speak Italian the whole day and I say car. I don't usually say car, but irresponsible, I say ir instead of ir. It can happen. That doesn't mean you don't know English. It can happen to native speakers. I'm a native speaker of Italian, and sometimes, as I said before, I can have the occasional rare English accent. For example, I always sing in English. And when I sing Greek, somebody said, "Oh, you have an English accent." Actually, because I said something with r instead of r, which is like in Italian, by the way, the Greek r. Okay, we are people, we are not computer. Having said that, goodbye. I will upload other videos because people are strongly influenced by this society over appearances, over showing off, mainly on YouTube, where you can prepare your videos, so you can have 100 uptakes, outtakes, no uptakes, you see, outtakes, and just upload, that's why I said upload the best one. I haven't prepared this video. This is the way I really speak. You see, sometimes I'm at a loss for words. I'm clutching at straws to find the right word because I prepare, then the word comes to me after a while. That's the way we really speak in real life when we speak another second or third language, okay? Sometimes we, just because I live in Italy, and when I get out I don't speak English, I speak Italian. So there are some circumstances of small talk that are more fluent in Italian. But that doesn't mean I don't speak English. I speak English. I never take for granted any language. There are things I know in English and I say, oh, what is that in Italian, that idiom? I'm curious, but I don't make this like my major concern in life. Goodbye.